Queued up tonight on Night Vision.
911, what is your emergency? She says she's behind the desk right now, but the shots were close.
I love you. I love you. It's going to be fine if you hide from there and you play dead.
Mass shootings on school campuses have parts of our country living in fear.
This was never a thought.
The solution? Arizona teachers packing heat.
Our job is to educate and protect students.
Teachers are being forced to write a new chapter about school safety.
If you had a teacher who was adept at firearms, they could very well end the attack very quickly.
These are my babies.
You're going to meet a few teachers who've chosen to fight back, pulling the trigger for the first time. Then, a community in crisis.
Every time there was a bottom, your rock bottom, it got deeper.
Volunteers working in the shadows to shed light and give hope to people living the dark life of drugs.
It's like having a set of permanent handcuffs on you, and you can only go so far.
I was shocked because the people I saw showing up to this needle exchange program shattered every stereotype that I thought a heroin user was.
But is handing out drug supplies the answer, or is it sending these addicts to their graves faster?
Giving someone another needle isn't helping them stop.
One, what's your solution?
First, it was Dolly. History was made back in the 90s when scientists cloned the first ever animal. But tonight, cloning Fido.
I had the money. I loved the dog. Now I have two.
How you can keep man's best friend alive forever. And later, adrenaline junkies unite in the desert. Jumping off a cliff, total free fall. What could possibly go wrong?
A lot of people think we're just some crazies strapping a parachute on us and going hucking ourselves off a cliff.
A leap of faith with little room for error.
We've got near 360-degree views here.
Night Vision taking you base jumping off Camelback Mountain.
There's still that element of fear, that twinge of fear. Probably some of the 10 of the best seconds of canopy flight in this part of the world.
First up tonight on Night Vision, the U.S. has more mass shootings than any other country in the entire world. Many of these shootings are happening on school campuses. We decided to take a deeper look tonight into keeping kids safe on campus. Schools have typically always been gun-free zones, but some states are now giving teachers the option to carry on campus. So we tagged along as Arizona teachers hit the shooting range for the first time.
Jefferson County 911. Yes, I'm a teacher at Columbine High School. There is a student here with a gun.
Town 911, what's the location of emergency?
Community Hook School, I think there's somebody shooting in here. 911, what is your emergency? Hi, my daughter Marjorie Spillman Douglas in Parkland, and she says there's an active shooter.
Think of all the mass shootings that this country has faced. Think of all the mass shootings that have happened at schools. Columbine, Sandy Hook, and now Parkland.
Oh my God! Oh my God! If you had a teacher who was adept at firearms, they could very well end the attack very quickly.
You've got the President of the United States saying, arm the teachers.
Schools must be the most hardened targets in this country.
You've got the NRA saying, arm the teachers.
I want to address this idea of school safety.
And now we've got Governor Ducey saying, arm the teachers. If this school safety plan goes into effect, teachers will be able to carry on campus. Is it safe to say you would do anything to protect your students?
Yeah, I would.
You always want to have your finger along the side until you're actually on target, ready to shoot.
I don't want to have to do anything, but yeah, I mean, I have grown children now. So these are my babies.
So this front sight, the top of this, the flat part should be flat with the back of that.
Okay.
I think that's.
Did you ever think that you would come to this point where you would actually consider bringing a gun and carrying a gun inside your classroom?
Never. This was never a thought. Our job is to educate and protect students. And so many of us don't want to have to look at a student and possibly say, I have to take your life to save these lives.
And when Cassie fired off her first 10 rounds, she totally missed the target. Totally missed the target. And you could tell she was nervous.
I think you might be a little bit high.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's one thing to say, arm our teachers. It's another thing to say is that teacher ready to kill? Do you think you, with your handgun, will be able to take down a guy with an AR-15?
It's a hard question, because I think with the proper training, I can.
In these sights, you see the dots? This white dot should be perfectly centered left and right between the back two.
After she missed the target, Suzanne, the NRA instructor, she worked with her. She taught her how to properly hold the gun, taught her how to properly get into her stance, taught her how to properly breathe as she's ready to pull that trigger.
Nice. Very nice. Oh, wow. Good job. You just got 10 shots in about the size of a hand. I mean, that's phenomenal.
Wow.
You totally neutralized that threat.
What's your thought on that?
Well, I'm kind of amazed that I was able to do it. But yeah, there's a lot of power when you're holding that gun. And I realized that, you know, if I'm going to shoot a gun, I need to shoot not to try to somebody in the leg or something, that you shoot to kill.
What do you say to that parent who says, I am really concerned about any teacher bringing a gun onto campus?
The reason that I have it, say if I was carrying one, is to help your child come home at night.
I have 12 and 13-year-olds hugging me every day as they come in and go out of my classroom. And that's what school should be. Students should, you know, love their teachers, and teachers should love their students.
We've got both extremes on this storyline. We have people saying no guns or less guns, and we've got the other side saying, no, we need more people with guns to protect people. Is there middle ground?
The heroin epidemic is sweeping the nation. It is a drug that is injecting itself into wealthy neighborhoods. People with successful jobs are now shooting up. We found crane operators, valley teachers who are out there getting high. In the story you're about to see tonight, there's a group of volunteers working in the shadows, providing all of these drug addicts with clean drug supplies. Their goal is not to get these people sober. No, they're trying to keep diseases like Hep C and HIV from spreading.
You can find drugs anywhere. They lock up however many drug dealers or drug peddlers or drug users that you can, and there'll always be more. It's in our high schools, it's in our neighborhoods, it's in the nice neighborhoods, the bad neighborhoods, it's down the street. I'm sure somebody has drugs in this parking lot right now.
I'd heard of needle exchange programs. I've never actually seen how they work. They don't give out the drug heroin, right? These needle exchange programs are going to give you all the supplies that you need. They're going to give you the needles, they're going to give you clean cotton swabs, they're going to give you the fresh and clean cooking plates. They also give you Narcan. It's a life-saving drug for anyone who's overdosing on heroin. Because it is illegal, they do essentially have to work in the dark and work in the shadows. So they set up these pop-up little locations, these pop-up needle exchanges.
Do you need a tourniquet?
They invited me along for the entire process, so we met up with them in the afternoon, and we showed up to this vacant parking lot in the East Valley. And within a matter of 30 minutes, he set up this little table and started packaging up all the needles and the cotton swabs. And the moment 5 o'clock struck, a line of cars started to show up in this parking lot.
All right, man, well, you stay safe. You have a good night.
Appreciate what you're doing, George.
I was shocked because the people I saw showing up to this needle exchange program shattered every stereotype that I thought a heroin user was.
It's a hard fight, and I've had 13 friends lose their lives because of this. You know, people I've grown up with, people I've known all my life, and they're gone. It's just, I don't know how else to describe it. It's just a battle.
It is really hard. And every time there was a bottom, you know, your rock bottom, it got deeper. Every time.
Every single person who shared their story with me at this needle exchange, I asked them the same question. How did you end up here? How did you end up in a vacant parking lot asking for clean needles? Every single one of them said it all started with a prescription for painkillers. And when the painkillers ran out, they immediately sought out dope. They immediately sought out heroin.
It started with an injury. I had a shoulder injury at my job I was at for 7 years. I was on prescription pain meds for almost 5 to 6 years.
I had been using prescription pain pills for, I know it's the story that everybody has. And every time I quit and it got started again, it was like I picked up right where I left off, if not a little bit lower. For about a year, I was abusing my prescription pain pills, snorting them, running out, and it was a lot easier to sell them and buy heroin, but I was a preschool teacher. I taught for 12 years. I can no longer teach now. That picture is our first Halloween together.
She showed up, got her needles, got her clean supplies, and I pulled her aside and I said, can I ask you a little bit about your story? How did you end up here? And she says it all started with a prescription for pain pills. And when her prescription to pain pills ended, she said she needed a fix, and she started using heroin. And I said, how bad has it gotten for you? And she says she was a Valley preschool teacher, and she was just fired from her job because she was addicted to heroin. And she just lost custody of her son because she's addicted to heroin. And I said, then why don't you stop? She said, if I could, I would, but I can't.
The hard days are a lot harder when you're using, but when you're on the streets and your priority is drugs before food, but you're starving, and people can just look at you and know, it's really hard.
What's it like being addicted?
Well, it's like having a set of permanent handcuffs on you, and you can only go so far. You don't want to struggle. You don't want to fight. You want to go the easy route. That's just how it works.
There are critics out there who say these people are doing nothing but enabling heroin users to continue to use.
I think the Pollyanna perspective is that you can help someone use drugs safely when the use of those drugs is going to lead to their death.
Do you think that essentially needles are a gateway to saying yes to heroin?
If you're already using heroin in the first place, then yes. Really? I mean, think about that question.
No, they're going to reuse needles, right? They're going to reuse dirty needles. It's not like a heroin addict's going to stop using heroin because they don't have a clean needle, correct?
Correct, yeah. So what I'm saying is you're already using heroin. Giving someone another needle isn't helping them stop from using heroin.
But it could prevent them from at least contracting Hep C and using a dirty needle or even HIV.
And what I'm telling you is that there are conflicting studies that show whether or not that really does occur.
I am one of those people that has Hep C, and I thankfully found out, but having something like Shot in the Dark is that hope that we can prevent spreading that to every other person.
The needle exchange program will simply say, they're not here to solve the opioid epidemic. People are going to use heroin. What they want to do is minimize the risk of the spread of Hep C and HIV to keep these users alive as long as possible, with the hope, if you keep them alive, then maybe one day they'll stop using. There are some people out there who will say, listen, handing out needles, syringes, Narcan isn't solving the opioid crisis that we have here in the Valley. What do you say to those people?
I would say, one, what's your solution?
I know that this story will open people's eyes to the side of the opioid epidemic that they have never seen before. It will shatter every stereotype you have of a heroin user. because something like this has never been told on local TV.
Still ahead on Night Vision.
I had the money. I loved the dog.
Seeing double.
Jackie was going downhill a little bit, and I thought, well, now's the time to do it.
Just when you thought your furry sidekick could be kicking the bucket, think again.
There really wasn't another way to have another Jackie.
You think she's truly that unique?
Yes, absolutely.
Dog cloning will help you fetch extra years with your pet. But as you're about to see tonight, it ain't cheap.
People are going to hear that $50,000 and just their eyes are going to bug out.
Yeah, but you be with her for 17 years and $50,000 is nothing.
And later, what goes up must come down. That is basic physics. But the trek up Camelback Mountain is rugged.
This last part's gonna get me.
Getting down can be just as treacherous, and in this case, it can be deadly. Thrill seekers are climbing high for the base jumping buzz.
It was like combining 100 skydives into one jump.
You know, losing a pet can be devastating, but what if you never had to say goodbye for good? One company is now offering up to clone man's best friend. Our question tonight, how much does something like that even cost? And of course, the controversy surrounding cloning. Jared Dillingham went to the Celebrity Theater here in Phoenix to meet the first dog to be cloned here in Arizona.
If you've been to a show here at the Celebrity Theater, you might have seen Jackie O here walk on stage with the owner to help introduce the act. Well, Jackie O is getting on in years now, and her owner wanted an exact replica of Jackie, a clone.
Jackie O has lived a life in the spotlight, meeting every act to come through the Celebrity Theater in Phoenix.
Who has she met? What famous names has she met?
Everybody. Chris Isaac loves her.
She roams the backstage hallways with theater owner Rich Hazelwood and generally gets along with everyone.
She hates one person.
Who's that?
Bill Maher.
Rich says the two had a scuffle during a photo shoot.
He was so pissed off he just walked out. Sit.
Rich took Jackie's side in that spat. He asked his staff to stop booking Bill Maher, who always played to a sold-out crowd. It was a costly decision, but as we found out, money is no object when it comes to his love for his dog, who's now 17 and blind.
Jackie was going downhill a little bit, and I thought, well, now's the time to do it.
The time, he says, to clone Jackie O.
There really wasn't another way to have another Jackie.
You think she's truly that unique?
Yes, absolutely.
Rich found a Texas-based company called Viagen, which has been cloning horses and cows for years. They just recently began cloning cats and dogs. Using a tiny tissue sample from a living pet or one who recently passed, they create an embryo and implant it into a surrogate dog.
It's amazing the feedback that we're getting.
Via Skype, Viagen rep Malane Rodriguez said they recently cloned their 100th pet.
I mean, is it going to look identical? Is it going to act the same? Is it going to have the same maybe hunting instincts or whatever the owner would want?
We don't really know how much of our personality is influenced by genetics and how much is influenced by the environment. Most likely a combination of both. You can have a shift in where the markings are, but usually not very dramatic, but sometimes they can be quite different looking.
Judge for yourself. You've met Jackie O, now meet Jilly O and Jenny O. They are Jackie's year-old clones, born to a surrogate beagle in Rochester, New York. They do share the same DNA, but you can see the markings on the clones are indeed very different than Jackie's.
Was that a surprise?
Yeah, really?
But he isn't bothered that Jackie's clones don't look just like her, and he's delighted that they have similar, but in some ways, very different personalities. Jenny is more relaxed and prefers naps. Jilly is more of an active athlete.
Yes, you are.
Rich is thrilled with the results, but says the idea of cloning did come with some initial concerns.
Well, I was a little nervous with the story about Dolly the sheep who died prematurely.
Are the cloned dogs as healthy? Is their lifespan or their life expectancy the same?
Cloned animals are perfectly healthy. They live a normal lifespan, just like any other dog.
As for the cost to clone, the company doesn't try to hide it. It is expensive.
Cloning for a dog, it's $50,000, and that is 100% guaranteed.
50 is crazy.
Yeah, people are going to hear that $50,000 and just their eyes are going to bug out.
Yeah, but you be with her for 17 years and $50,000 is nothing.
It doesn't come as a surprise to him that animal adoption advocates feel that kind of money could be better spent.
There's so many homeless animals in this world that maybe you should spend that money as a donation towards a shelter and adopting out another animal so they can experience that love versus trying to clone an animal.
I could see people saying, why not just go to the shelter and adopt a dog and, you can get a dog with a great personality who needs a good home.
That makes a lot of sense, but it didn't to me.
Yeah.
I had the money, I loved the dog, now I have two.
Jackie has taken her final bow on stage. She's enjoying retirement. Her legacy will live on through her clones. Next on Night Vision, it's a bird, it's a plane. No, that's a base jumper.
That's how the professionals do it.
Why they're all flooding the desert for an adrenaline rush. You know, the Valley is a well-known sports destination, but there's another less publicized sport that is drawing people here from all over the world. It's called base jumping. Night Vision correspondent Morgan Lowe explains there's one spot right in the middle of the Valley where base jumping is perfectly legal.
It might look like they're throwing caution and themselves to the wind, but the daredevil sport of base jumping is actually quite choreographed.
A lot of people think we're just some crazies strapping a parachute on us and going hucking ourselves off a cliff. We have years of experience and training in the skydiving world before we get into this.
Scott Frankson has been jumping for 27 years. Today, he's taking us up Camelback Mountain to see firsthand what it's like to take the plunge. My first lesson, these guys are in great shape. The hike to the top is beautiful, just 30 minutes, and what feels like 3,000 calories.
This last part's gonna get me.
We make the final scramble to the top, and we can see the whole valley from here.
We've got near 360-degree views here, and a couple of people with me are about to jump.
But before that happens, they've got some housekeeping to do. Helmets and specially designed parachutes.
Quick, simple, and reliable. Everything about the gear is just designed as, with that in mind.
In base jumping, there is a very small margin for error. This jump from the end of 2016 shows what happens when the wind blows a jumper back into the cliff. They have just a couple of seconds to react. Now it's time for the action, and we've got it covered from every angle. It's only about 10 seconds to the landing, but what a 10 seconds it is.
It's probably some of the 10 of the best seconds of canopy flight in this part of the world.
Even for these veteran jumpers, each leap is still exciting and a little scary.
There's still that element of fear, that twinge of fear, but that's pretty natural. If you're up here and you don't have any fear at all, I mean, you're doing it wrong. No, I probably something wrong with it.
I'm going to leave that one to the experts and correspondent Morgan Lowe. Thanks for joining us for this edition of Night Vision. We'll see you back here tomorrow night.